up, it's David for Techbytes, and today we're going to be comparing two flagship phones from two very big companies. That is going to be the iPhone X and the Samsung S9 Plus. We're going to be comparing 7 key features today of each phone, and they include the design and the features, the screen, the speed, security, the camera, the battery, and the price of the phone. So let's go jump right into it. The iPhone X and S9 Plus both are beautiful looking phones, but with distinct differences. The S9 Plus is a larger phone, but only in terms of height. They are both relatively the same width at 2.9 inches for the S9 Plus and 2.8 inches for the iPhone X. While the iPhone X is 5.7 inches tall and the S9 Plus is 6 inches tall, both phones are also very light and feel very nice to hold since both phones are just under 7 ounces. However, the curved screen on the S9 Plus isn't exactly the greatest feature. Because of the curved display, it has led to many accidental touches, and it's quite annoying scrolling through your feed and accidentally liking or clicking something that you don't want to. So until Samsung can do something about that, I definitely prefer the iPhone X over the Samsung S9 in that regards. And while the iPhone X does have a notch at the top of the phone, I don't think that it really gets in the way. In fact, there are a couple Android phones that are trying to copy that trend. Honestly, I'm totally okay with the notch because I know that it houses the Face ID sensors, which works flawlessly, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And while some people enjoy having a back button and a home button, I honestly don't like it that much. Swiping up to quit an app just feels a little bit more natural to me, and after I got my iPhone X, after about 5 minutes, I was already used to the gesture. Having a back button is cool as well, but I much prefer gesture-based movement, and on the iPhone X, I can just swipe right to go back in an app, which to me just feels more natural and wastes less time than moving my thumb all the way down to a back button to press it. Now, it does sound silly to complain about something so little as that, but trust me, after using an iPhone X for a long time and getting used to these gestures, I was kind of annoyed that I couldn't use these gestures on Android. So while the Samsung S9 Plus is seriously a beautiful looking phone and feels really nice to hold, and it even has an audio jack, I much prefer the iPhone X. So the winner of this round is going to go to the iPhone. Both the iPhone and the S9 have a wonderful screen, and both are AMOLED displays, so the color reproduction is amazing compared to phones just a few years ago. But the Samsung screen is gorgeous. Seriously, it's one of the best screens I've ever seen. It gets a lot brighter than the iPhone X, so therefore you can see the colors better and the colors just pop out more. The colors are also much more saturated on the S9 Plus, but because of this, the images are not really true to life, but they still look freaking amazing. This is not to say that the iPhone X screen is horrible though. It's still very crisp and still looks very good, and the colors are great. But honestly, I just prefer the S9 Plus screen over the iPhone X any day. So there isn't much to say here. I think the winner is the S9 Plus. The iPhone X has a 6-core CPU at 2.39 GHz and 3 GB of RAM, while the S9 Plus has an 8-core CPU at 2.8 GHz with 6 GB of RAM. So on paper, it would seem that the Samsung S9 Plus is going to be faster, almost twice as fast. But as various benchmarks point out, that's not really the case here. Unfortunately, the amount of cores in RAM does not correlate to how fast your phone is. On average, the iPhone X scored about 20 to 40% faster on Geekbench than the Samsung S9 Plus, which as a result, using the iPhone X feels really snappy and smooth, and the UI feels great. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the iPhone X. Now don't get me wrong, the Samsung S9 Plus is incredibly fast, and most of the UI feels snappy and responsive, but keynote on most. If you've seen my previous video on the S9 Plus, you'll see that the UI is pretty smooth, but there are some apps that act really slow and unresponsive and just feel laggy. Mainly I was talking about Bixby Vision, which is Samsung's software for their flagship phone, but it's laggy and unresponsive, and I don't get it, and I just don't like it. But anyway, let's talk about app launches. Apps launch very fast on both phones, and in most cases, the iPhone X pulls through with the win, but by very little, except when it comes to Google applications such as Gmail, Drive, and Chrome. Now, both phones are super fast, and honestly, you're not gonna notice a difference in day-to-day, but honestly, I like the feel of the iPhone X better than the S9 Plus. It just feels more responsive at times, and you know that it's gonna work. So the winner of this round is gonna go to the iPhone X. Security is a big issue on phones these days, especially in the day of technology. We want to make sure that our information is secure. So let's compare some of the security features on both phones. Now, both phones offer some sort of facial recognition software, but Samsung goes one up and also includes a fingerprint sensor, which the iPhone X does not. But we're only going to be talking about facial recognition in this section, so that doesn't really matter. Now, both phones recognize my face very quickly, but I prefer the way that the iPhone X recognizes my face. You see, I like to read my notifications on my phone before I open the app. You see, I'm kind of busy most of the day, so I don't like checking my phone if I don't have to. So therefore, I like to read the preview of the notification on my phone versus having to open the app and then look at the notification. For me, it just takes more time to pick up my phone and then unlock and then go to the app and blah, blah, blah. I'd rather just look at the preview and determine from there whether or not I need to go into the app and reply, or I can just let it be. Now, the way this works out is that on the iPhone X, I can look at the screen and it unlocks the phone, but it doesn't go to the home screen. Versus on the S9 Plus, when you look at the phone, it unlocks and then goes to the home screen. So it doesn't give me a chance to look at the preview to determine if I need to stop what I'm doing, get my phone, and then open the app and then reply. So I really appreciate that feature about the iPhone X. I also really love the raise to wake feature on the iPhone X. So I don't have to press a button to open my phone, I can just lift it up and then it opens up and then starts scanning my face. Versus on the S9, I have to lift up my phone, then press a button, and then scan my face, and then unlock. Now, you don't have to do this if you have the display always on feature on, but honestly, that just eats battery life, and it doesn't really work with facial recognition. It doesn't automatically unlock your phone via your face when you lift it up, but it does with your fingerprint, so there you go. But again, we're talking about facial recognition here. Performance-wise, the facial recognition on the S9 Plus is a hit or miss, honestly. During the day, it works very well, and I didn't have any issues with it working during the day, but at night, it was just hit or miss. Sometimes it would recognize my face, and sometimes it wouldn't. In fact, the S9 Plus didn't recognize my face at all in very low light situations, or almost darkness. Unlike on the iPhone X though, that uses infrared scanning in order to recognize your face, which is independent of visible light, which means that the iPhone X works pretty much anywhere. I've never had a problem with the iPhone X recognizing my face in the dark or in my bedroom when all the lights are off. Unlike the S9 Plus, which doesn't even recognize my face when all the lights are off. Now honestly, those are just personal preferences and personal nuances and annoyances, but let's talk about the actual security of the phone. Both the facial recognition and the iris scanner were hacked last year on the S8. Hackers were able to just use a picture of you in a contact lens in order to unlock your phone. Honestly, I don't even think Samsung is confident in their own technology because you can't even use the facial recognition in order to use Samsung Pay. So given the circumstances of last year and the lack of information on how Samsung improved on security for this year, I honestly would just stick with the fingerprint sensor if you're on the S9 Plus, or better yet, just use an iPhone X. So I think the winner of this round is going to be the iPhone X. These phones have amazing cameras built into them, and honestly, the technology is amazing on both phones because sometimes you can't even distinguish a photo between a DSLR and a cell phone. But how do these two flagship phones compare? Let's take a deeper look. Both cameras are 12 megapixel, but the Samsung S9 Plus aperture goes as wide as f1.5, while the iPhone X goes as wide as f1.8. So the iPhone lets in a little bit less light, but let's take a look at some photos. In most of my tests, I have found that the Samsung S9 Plus has more detail in the picture than the iPhone X, but the colors are almost always blown out or way brighter than the actual subject was in real life. This can be a good or a bad thing. For example, in lower light situations, this is pretty good. The Samsung S9 Plus will let in more light, so therefore the pictures will look a little bit brighter, but you do have to be careful because in low light situations, the photos can tend to look a little bit blurry at night. I found that the iPhone X photos were more true to life and had way better color reproduction. Images were also warmer and more vibrant on the iPhone X versus a lot of the S9 photos were cold and washed out at times, but they were indeed very sharp. Now the Samsung S9 Plus does feature a 960 FPS slow-mo option, which the iPhone X does not offer, but it is capped at 720p. So these videos on a high resolution display look kind of grainy at times. Especially since all the devices these days are becoming more and more high res, I just don't see myself using it. But both phones do offer 1080p, 240 FPS slow-mo, which does look very good on both phones. But the winner in my opinion is the iPhone X because the colors just look a little bit better and look more true to life. The S9 Plus features a 3500 mAh battery, while the iPhone X features a 2700 mAh battery. So on paper, it would seem that the S9 Plus lasts longer than the iPhone X, which it does, but not by much. Because the Samsung S9 Plus has a higher core count and more RAM and all these features, it uses a lot more battery than the iPhone X. But both phones lasted me throughout the whole day through casual use, which included texting, web browsing, playing casual games, and just checking my social media. At the end of the day, the S9 Plus had about 3 to 5% more battery than the iPhone X, but I'm actually surprised that the iPhone X came so close. Both phones charge relatively fast, going from about 10% to about 100% in about an hour and 15 minutes. Note that this was using Apple's quick charge feature as well, so that means that in order to get this feature, you have to pay extra on top of the $1,000 you already spent for the iPhone X. Using the standard power brick would yield slightly slower results. So while the iPhone X does put up a good fight, unfortunately you still have to spend extra money on a power brick and cable in order to enable quick charge feature. So honestly, the winner of this round does indeed go to the S9 Plus. Now the iPhone X is a wonderfully fast phone, but it's also one of the most expensive phones on the market right now. Coming in at $999 without including the accessories for quick charging, it is a pricey entry point. It is much more expensive than the Samsung S9 Plus, which is retailing around $840 unlocked from Samsung itself. The only downside is that the S9 Plus price varies from carrier to carrier, with Verizon selling it for $929. Still, it is less than the iPhone X, so in that regards, I think the clear winner here is the S9 Plus. So there you have it, guys. That is the competition between the two flagship phones that I have here. Now, honestly, the competition was very close and Samsung has come a long way. And in reality, the Samsung S9 Plus is a really great phone and most Android users are gonna be really happy with it. In fact, I was pretty happy with it for the most part, just a few nuances here and there. And I do think that many Android power users are going to enjoy this phone. But for me, honestly, I prefer the simplicity and the features that work on the iPhone X. So I do think that the iPhone X is the winner here, but I think it's subjective to each person. Each person will like what they like, and there's no right or wrong. You have to look at these features and see which one is worth it for you. If you prefer the speed and something that just works, maybe go for the iPhone X. But if you like the ability to tweak your phone and maybe have a little bit more battery life, then maybe you should go for the Samsung S9 Plus. There really isn't a right or wrong. Anyways guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you like this stuff and subscribe if you want to see more stuff. Drop a comment if you want to see other phones being compared. And as always, I hope you guys have a fantastic day and I'll see you next time.